So today we're going to be cooking this nice rack of beef short ribs. They're from the meat merchant down in Moira. It's a 4-rack rib, roughly about 2 kilos. Looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit of fat trimming to do on this side. There's quite a thick fat part here, which will trim down a little bit because you don't really need a lot of fat on them. There's plenty inside the ribs. But we need to talk a little bit about the barbecue setup first, because it's kind of where most of this goes. There's not a lot goes into these. It's all in the barbecue setup. So we filled the KJ up with lumpwood charcoal. Put 1 fire lighter in there at the front. The fire tends to burn from the front to the back, just purely because that's where the air inlet is. So a single fire lighter, we don't want to light a big fire in it, we want to bring it up slowly. I loaded the barbecue with the heat deflectors and stuff, although they're not in place, but I put them in there so they could become heat soaked, rather than putting cold diffusers in there and then having them crack on me. So at this point, the grill has sort of settled at around 130 degrees C, which is fine. You don't need to go overly low and slow for ribs. I'm happy if this creeps up to around 150, but it will change a little bit once we get it into its final setup. So I'll pull you over to the barbecue now and we'll get that all in place and ready to go. So as you can see, we have a nice small fire lit down in this front of the barbecue. It hasn't really lit all the way back yet. That'll slowly start to creep. I want to get this done quick because I don't want to leave this open for too long. We're going to go in with our heat deflectors on the lowest level. And before I put that second one in, I have 2 wood chunks I'm going to go in with. First one's hickory, so it's a little bit stronger. And then we have a nice apple chunk too. We'll put them both in relatively close to that fire because I want them to take on the smoke at the first part of the cook. If you place your chunks away at the back here, they're not going to light up, and your meat will be sealed by the time the smoke ever starts to come from them. So those will start to give off a little bit of smoke right at the start. We're in with the second heat deflector. That kind of seals off our fire then from the cook grates. Now I'm going to put a drip tray down in there as well, because I don't want all the fat coming out of these beef ribs onto my heat diffusers. And then we'll just flip over that top grate. So we'll close that down again. Let our temperature settle. So you can kind of see here, this will start to slowly come back up. I don't expect it to come up to where it was before. Now that all that's in, that's going to have to kind of resettle again, and we can readjust our vents. So you can kind of see here, the top vent is closed to about the first nick, and the bottom vent is around a finger's width open. So while the barbecue's recovering from getting the final setup in, we'll stick a glove on and we will get the beef ribs ready. So there is a little bit of trimming to do on them. As far as flavours go then, I have a little dribble of hot sauce here we're going to use for a binder. And then for our rubs, I'm going to go with the Cocoa Chilli and then the Steakhouse Gaucho. 2 slightly different flavour profiles. However, the Cocoa Chilli is a kind of nice fine rub, nice for beef, and then the Gaucho is a steak seasoning really, but it has lots of salt and herbs in there as well, so they'll kind of give us a more coarse texture on it as well. Between the 2 they should be pretty nice. So we'll get them off onto the board, and it's this chunk of fat here I want to do a trimming with. This here isn't too bad, there's very little fat on it. I think most of that's going to render down. I just want to try and shave a little bit of this harder vein of fat off, purely because it'll just bubble up once we finish cooking. Kind of little flaps like this here, we can just get rid of them. Again here, it's just a little straggler, no need for it. It's not going to do anything for us, so we'll try and trim a little bit of this off at the back. Just try and get the rub to penetrate down in a bit further. Okay, so there's actually, flip these up, a layer of silver skin here, which I have no interest in, sort of underneath that fat. I might as well go ahead and trim that off. It is going to be chewy as anything by the time these are smoked, so now is the time to get rid of it. Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with that. I don't expect that large fat cap to render down, but there's no point in trimming it out either. Like, we're going to take it away nearly down to the bone there, so most of the rough stuff is taken off. Any little like traily bits are just going to burn, have been removed. So hot sauce, little drizzle on just to help the meat stick. The meat's already sticking, the rub to stick to the meat. And we go on first with, I've done it again, so on first with our Cocoa Chilli. I think this might actually be my first time doing rubs that aren't like Texas style, just salt and pepper down the sides done too. So next time we'll go on with a bit of a coarser rub, which is again the Steakhouse Gaucho. A little bit more salt in this, more fresh herbs. That is a nice looking rack of beefies. Now we get them onto the grill. Okay, our temperature has leveled out again around 125, 130-ish. I'll be happy if it sits there. If it creeps a little, again I'm fine with it. Our smoke's rolling nicely. I have the thermopane smoke set up here, I'm going to put it into it. We're not really going by temperature at the minute, but I want to just monitor the cook a little bit. So I've got the meat probe in there. I'm not using the grill temp probe because I trust the thermometer on this. Before we drop the beefies in, I do want to put a boiled kettle of water, fill that up. That is not anything to do with moisture in the chamber. That is purely to stop all the fats and stuff from burning to that pan and making kind of an acrid smoke. It will affect the temperatures a little bit, nothing major. Bring over our rack of beefies and get them on right over the top of that pan, right in the middle. Of course the plane flies over now. Then we'll grab our smoke probe and just find the deepest part to put it into, kind of in between those middle ribs. And then we just get that closed down. Let the temps recover again on it, and we'll let them go for a few hours before we're even going to touch them. The KJ is to sit rock steady, we shouldn't have to do too much to it. We'll monitor our temps just to see what kind of rate we're climbing at, but I'm happy enough to go and enjoy the rest of my day now and let those do their thing. Okay, a little bit of an update. We are 3 hours, just over 3 hours into the cook. Things are ticking along nicely. I've just sort of checked on them, topped up the water bath a little bit. You might notice I've added the pit probe to the thermopane smoke. Within the first hour, I think they had raised to about just below 70 degrees. Well, maybe around 65, 66. So I started to panic a little bit that the KJ probe or thermometer was off because I haven't calibrated it in a long time, and it was sitting rock steady at 130 degrees. It did not move the whole time. Once it came up, the temperature just sat there and it hasn't moved since. I put it on and it is calibrated fine, so I don't know why they've gone so quick at the start. So they've stalled out a little bit now. We're currently sitting around 77 degrees. The colour's looking pretty good on them. I'm happy enough with the smoke, happy enough with the way the rubs and stuff are working. They're still nice and moist. A few little dry patches starting to come on them, but they're going to do that at this point anyway in the cook. So I'm not going to wrap them. I don't think there's really a need to wrap them. I will keep an eye on them and check on them maybe every half hour, and if I think they're starting to move dry a little bit too much, then I'll do something about it. But at the minute, I'm just going to let them ride, and obviously we're still nowhere near finished. This temperature needs to get well up to the 80s before those are like probing tender. And even at that point, we might need to go in with the thermopane just and check them a little bit. So everything looks good for now. I'll go back in, Formula 1's about to start, so I think I'll go and watch that. And we'll check back in another couple of hours time. Okay, a bit of an update. We are 6 hours in. So I think the last update was around 3 hours. We are currently sitting at about 89.5 degrees. So we're at that temperature now where we're pretty much probing for tenderness. I give them a stick with the thermopane and they're not there yet. It's kind of a weird rack of ribs. I'm not sure what part of the rib it's from. But where that fat seam was along the middle, one set seems to have pulled back in one direction and the other two ribs have pulled back in the opposite direction. It's kind of bones sticking out everywhere. So that middle part where all the fat was, that's tender, but I'm pretty sure that's probably going to be fat right down to the bone. So we're really just looking at 2 hunks of meat either end of that. We're not there yet. It's going to take as long as it takes, really. I'll keep sticking them every half hour. So barbecue hasn't moved. Again, it's sitting rock steady, which is good. It did stall out for a long time. So around that 3 hour mark we last talked, at that point it had stalled, and realistically it was only about an hour ago it started to rise again. So it took it, going from kind of 79 to 81 degrees, took nearly 2.5 hours. So it's only 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Plenty of time. It's not going to turn into nighttime cook anytime soon. Once they are ready, we're going to lift them off, wrap them and rest them. And they need to rest for a long time, probably at least a good 2 hours. And at that point, then we can carve them up. At this point, you might be pretty tempted to try and rush them or increase the temps or wrap them. Or yeah, to me, the colour's fine. There's no need to wrap them up. They're not getting an overly dark bark, so we'll let them run, but do not lift them off early. Do not fool yourself into thinking they're probing tender, because if you think they're probing tender, give them another half hour just to see what they go like. I can promise you they will get better. So be patient, that is key. Okay, we're just shy of 7 hours. I think our beef ribs are ready to come off. So if we take our probe, pushes in with next to no resistance. This is kind of that thigh area, so there's next to nothing there. And as we move up here, we're back into meat again. So other than the bark, it just slides right through, so I think they're good to come off. So we'll go ahead and pull the probe out. Don't need it in anymore, and we can get rid of that one as well. And we're going to double wrap them in foil to rest them. So right, we're going to have a fun job trying to get these wrapped up and not have the bones punch out through, but we'll do our best. So we lift the rack, place it on, shut the barbecue down. Okay, so now as gently as possible, wrap these up without puncturing the foil. Should be fine, right? Ah, no, I've done it already. Let's see. That's not too bad. I might stick another little sheet around it. That should be okay. As long as we're going to do the same thing again. So those are going to go into the Yeti. We're going to rest them for at least 2 hours. They say sort of half the cooking time. We were just shy of 7 hours, but 2 hours resting should be fine. So into the cooler, put a big towel or blanket or something in there just to take up the rest of the space. Then we'll come back, unwrap them, and they should be nice and tender at that point, and we'll take them apart and see what they look like. Right, let's take a look at these beefies and see how they've come out. So 2 hour rest, currently just after 7 o'clock at night. I'm kind of thinking about these while they've been wrapped up. I'm not sure how they're going to turn out. That fat in the middle of them might be a little bit weird. It's kind of like, it seems to run the whole way through. It's so hard to pick ribs whenever they're like vac packed. You don't get a good poke feel around them. But whatever they are, I'm sure they'll be tasty. Yeah, so it feels like this center section here is the fatty part, and then we've got a nice section of meat here and meat here as well. So we'll stick the knife through this one, see how it's come out. Do you know what? That's not bad at all. Yeah, so that is honestly not too bad. They are nice and soft, but this next one I have a feeling isn't going to be quite as nice. So if I come down through the middle here, this is that fatty section. So this little section here is the same as this rib meat here. This part here is a little bit different. This, I believe, is actually part of the brisket that sits on top of it. It's always cooked slightly different to this. That's why you can kind of see the grain of it runs this way, the way the brisket would, and the grain of the beef ribs runs down the way. So, but the fat has actually rendered out pretty well. It is nice and soft. A little bit of a jelly fat up here, but that's fine. And then this end one, so this is mostly, I believe, this brisket meat. Yeah, so you can see here, the meat's running this direction for here, and then up here it is running that direction. But that has actually rendered out quite well. Usually that can go pretty tough. By the time the meat down here, this takes a little bit longer to render than this, so, but the proof is in the eating. I should mention, I'm not actually eating these, we're not eating these as ribs now. Just going to carve off a little bit here to have a taste. Okay, nice gnarly dark bark, smoke rings good. Beef ribs are so rich. There is awesome kick of chili off that rub. The beef ribs have an awesome flavour on their own, and that's why salt and pepper always goes so well with them. But I'm kind of glad I tried them. It's like a new experience for me having beef ribs with a chili flavour to them. So I have plans for these beef ribs, and if you want to see what that is, you need to follow me over on Instagram. I'm going to put this to good use, trust me. So overall, I think that was a nice cook. I'm glad I didn't wrap them. The bark has come really nice. Hasn't dried out at all. It's still kind of falling apart. The smoke's good on them. I'd say overall success. So let me know what you think. Let me know what way you like doing beef ribs. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.